A couple of months ago now, I made a video talking about Fallout 4's big secret, that being about the Todd Howard terminal secret, which as we discover is that the player in Fallout 4 is meant to have some doubts, or there's a few hints in the game suggesting that we are actually a synth. If you want to see the full explanation and how we got to that conclusion, I'll have it linked in the eye or in the description, but how well fitting for that to have been figured out a couple of months ago, to now we actually have mods released for the game that allow you to play as a synth, give you an alternate way to kick off and be introduced into Fallout 4's Commonwealth, this time as a synth agent, as if that synth secret Bethesda and Todd Howard alluded to was actually real and intended from the beginning. So in this video, I turned that singular mod into hopefully a bit of a mod list for many of you, as in this one it's really going to be a two-front approach, and there's some pretty cool mods in this one that I've never covered before, so I do encourage you to watch it through. We're going to start off with ways to improve your character with this new synthetic start, and some mods to really help you get into this new synth character, but then separately in the second half, several mods that were either recently updated or recently released that allow you to overhaul the Institute in its entirety, bring big changes and big improvements to the faction. And I gotta say, some of the mods we check out in this one are pretty special, so you definitely are going to want to download them. If you guys enjoy the content, you can get subscribed. I've noticed recently by looking at the YouTube statistics, many of you who watch these videos are subscribed. So if you do want to unsubscribe to help change that stat, you can do so now. But first and foremost, let's look at the cornerstone mod that inspired this entire video, that with synthetic player. This is a pretty cool one, and more or less it is an alternate start or an alternate introduction into Fallout 4's Commonwealth. Now as you kick off the game, you will quite literally be in a different location rather than that iconic bathroom in the Institute headquarters somewhere. From here you can customize your character in a somewhat typical way, but then you do have your mission briefing as well as some of the custom choices with this mod. So more or less the briefing with this one is you're an agent of the Institute, replacing Nate or Nora, who died naturally in the process of being stored in the cryopod. But now you're going to be sent out by the Institute to infiltrate and help destroy the other factions of the Commonwealth. And there's actually some pretty nice lore given to you as motivation as to why you want to do this. These custom start options give you the ability to start with some Institute equipment, start at a higher level, or even instead of starting at the vault itself, actually start at something like a random settlement or outside of the vault. And unlike some of the other alternate start mods in Fallout 4, this mod actually gives you tangible changes in the world. Right off the bat, you will have the Institute discovered, so you can fast travel back and forth from that location. And even further, the Institute members will recognize you as an Institute agent. Father will no longer identify himself as your son, but rather you'll be one of his creations, and all of the Institute members themselves will also reflect this, referring to you as a member of the Institute, not the father of, well, father. This also means you don't technically ever have to do the institutionalized questline, that being the first one where you're introduced to Father and Sean. Codsworth doesn't know you, and the dialogue does reflect that. Another pretty cool one is Kellogg. No longer we get that big deep dive into the background, who you are and how the Institute tasked him with spying on you, but rather he will identify you as a peer, another member of the Institute, and it does cut down your choices as Father wants you to handle him. Throughout this, it actually gives you the ability to skip several quests that would otherwise be redundant. No longer do you have to deal with Valentine and all the hoops you normally have to jump through to get to Kellogg. You go straight there. Same thing with the Institute questline. You could pretty much kick it off immediately with Father by teleporting there. So it's a pretty cool mod to have a nice alternate and quite distinctive start to Fallout 4, especially if you're looking to side with the Institute. But a few other mods to make you feel more like your new synth identity. Augmentation is a great one to allow you to get a bit more in the character. Unfortunately being female only, but allow you to have a new outfit as well as several of those components that you typically find on Dima. You could have a larger version that has them in their full breadth, or a more subtle version that just has a few plugs here or there. And although that's a nice and simple one, something quite a bit more extreme in more ways than one is IKAROS-Androids. This is a very recently released mod for Fallout 4 that has been teased for years at this point. And this effectively adds in a totally new character race into Fallout 4, that of course being robot or really android in theme. And as you could also probably tell, this definitely has some certain tones to it, appealing to one subsection of the Fallout community, but this race type is totally customizable, so you could really make the person or character look however you'd like or have whatever dimensions you would like. This is just the default option. And although right off the bat, of course, if you wanted to make your character look like a cyborg in Fallout 4, this is going to probably be the best mod out there right now. It also is incredibly high quality and high detail. It also does come with some tangible benefits to your character. You'll actually have a slightly higher chance of hitting enemies in VATS because you're now an android. Even other things like being able to swim forever to have a much lower cripple chance as well as reduced fall damage. You will be immune to rads and poison. You could actually jump a bit higher as well as your melee strength is increased. Overall, although this mod definitely does appeal to one aspect of the audience, it does have a lot of tangible benefits just as playing as a robot, which of course with the Institute in Fallout 4 is quite thematically appropriate. Although as fun as punching people in Fallout 4 can be, you might actually want some weapons for your new Institute themed character, considering the Institute weaponry is probably the weakest part of that faction overall. One of my favorite releases as far as Institute themed weapons go is the AR-15. So now this technically is just a new weapon mod for Fallout 4, actually looking a lot like many other modern weapon mods for the game, but you could customize it to have a more Institute theme overall, but even further, this is a modern looking rifle that is a laser rifle in Fallout 4, which I feel like is actually a pretty cool twist. I think if Bethesda were to take the laser weaponry of Fallout 4, even just the Institute in a different direction, this would be something they would be using. Outside of the weapon itself just being a good solid addition as far as a weapon mod does go, it also does have a unique mechanic in that you could actually change the wavelength of your shots, so you can have it deal lower damage but have a higher rate of fire and actually changes the color, or on the other side of the spectrum, and there's quite a few choices in between, you deal a lot of damage per shot but have a significantly reduced rate of fire. It's a really nice one, has that unique customization option as well as all of the typical ones you find with modern weapons for Fallout 4, with scopes, sights, receivers, and different rail options. But I think a great tandem sidearm for this one is Monkey Depot's Institute pistol. This is a very flat and simple looking pistol for Fallout 4 that could be almost configured to be a PDW in some regard, that I think actually just also looks like something very thematically appropriate for the Institute and pairs quite well with the AR-15 for a character. This being unique for the Institute in that it is a ballistic weapon, not a laser weapon. But considering your task is being sent out into the Commonwealth to invade certain factions, I feel like it does kind of make sense for you to use ballistic ammo, which the vast majority of other people are using. So those are a couple of the ways you can fill out your character with some better equipment and actually just make them look better overall. But I think the final one to include on this list is kill tips and hit sound. And you may be like, what? How does this have anything to do with the Institute? And it's actually just for the bullet time feature included with this mod, as I think it is one of the most well integrated bullet time functionalities of any Fallout 4 mods. So with that whole Bethesda planted theory around the main player character being a synth, one of the core terminal entries for it is that there was some experimentation with Gen 3 synths being able to slow down time, very similar to VATS. I know though, of course, we technically do have VATS, which slows time, doesn't freeze it in Fallout 4. I feel like bullet time is just a lot more fun and feels more robot-y, like we're processing things at a higher speed, so I think this bullet time mod fits in well. The reason it's my favorite bullet time mod is it only works while you're aiming down sights, which makes you have this kind of natural engage and disengage point. So you'll aim down sights, hit the bullet time button, engage into bullet time, take down a few enemies, which comes at the cost of AP as long as you're in bullet time, but then as soon as you stop aiming down the sights, it'll automatically turn off. It makes the whole thing feel a lot snappier, feel more like a fundamental feature of Fallout 4, depending on where you map the button. So technically for this point, you could really integrate any bullet time mod, but I think the implementation of this one is my favorite, so I'm featuring it. But then shifting away from the individual mods, we do have several mods to help you overhaul or just in general improve the Institute. The first of which is actually a pretty big one. We started off this video with a new way to introduce you into a playthrough aligned with the Institute, but the Father Companion mod now gives you an alternate avenue for the ending with the Institute. So as you know, when you play Fallout 4, you do at some point discover that Father does have cancer. And despite the advanced technological capability of the Institute themselves, Father prefers to go the natural route and will eventually kind of end up dying. Or at least that's typically what happens. As with the Father Companion mod, it does give you a couple of avenues that I think are actually pretty lore friendly in Fallout 4 to save Father. Not just something absurd out of left field, actually things that make sense and have their own quests built in with them. So after Father does give his speech to the board of directors that he is in fact dying and he wants you to take over the Institute, you will have a new quest pop up to look into options to save him. One of the main methods you could do this is with Dr. Dean Volkert, this just being the doctor in the Institute who will now have some additional dialogue where you can inquire about Father's diseases and really inquire about trying to save him. One of the things I like about this mod though is it doesn't just allow you to do that, considering it goes against the founder of the Institute's wishes, and this guy is a member of the Institute. He is extremely reluctant. And depending on which avenue you do take, it'll take speech checks to get him to even consider this, and for some avenues take multiple. The two main options here being either using the mysterious serum given to you by Jack Cabot, or alternatively infecting Father with the forced evolutionary virus and turning him into a super mutant so he doesn't die of cancer. Although alternatively, if you don't want to go that route, you can alienate yourself from the Institute overall, kill the doctor and take things off him, but again, that'll anger the Institute, or just find a separate outlet to get the FEV virus or use the mysterious serum. Then as you return to the Institute for those final quests and you find Father more or less on his deathbed, you'll actually have the opportunity to change his mind. This being done either via skill checks or once he just naturally goes unconscious. Because he is an old, dying, sick man, once he's unconscious, you, against his will, inject him with whatever you have. And then from there, after beating the game, a few days will pass and you can find Father back in Vault 111. And if you did infect him with the FEV virus, considering how against mutations he was, he'll be very reluctant to join you. You'll yet again have quite a bit of dialogue and have to pass further speech checks to get him as a super mutant companion. I like this mod for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it gives you a lot of additional choices around the ending of Fallout 4. If you are going a hardcore Institute playthrough, you have some more natural or kind of accepted means of fixing this problem, but also you could destroy the entire Institute and still save Father, because it's still your son. It does seem pretty plausible that the sole survivor would do that. And of course, depending on which choices you make here, you will have slightly different outcomes. Another really nice touch with this mod is it does give you a secondary ending slide screen, so you can see the choice you made to save Father, or perhaps even how you made that choice. It's a small gesture with the mod, but it does feel pretty appropriate considering the entire point of the game is finding your son, and then if you choose to actually save your son, that probably does warrant some recognition with the end game. But a couple of other pretty nice mods to help overhaul or improve the Institute. We also do have the Institute Overhaul, cleverly named. This is a nice one in that it's actually a series of smaller mods to improve the Institute, kind of bundled into one pack. So it'll do things like update some of the outfits worn by members of the Institute. These overhauled versions looking cooler. I think it makes the Institute logo and theme just a lot nicer, although still staying pretty true to the original idea. Father also getting a pretty cool outfit as a result of this. We can see the Institute laser weapons as well as synth armor get a change up from this, definitely looking a lot better with this mod installed. And overall, it's a nice one in that it does affect some of those more minor things that may be forgotten by other mods, and really for many of these, you may have not downloaded these standalone mods, but together as a bundle, it's a nice one to include in the background to comprehensively make the Institute look a bit better. But then the last one that does add a lot of additional things to the Institute is Phase 4 and Institute Expansion. This is another pretty awesome one for Fallout 4, and I've covered it a bit in the past, but it has received several additional updates. What Phase 4 is going to do is add in a whole secondary section to the Institute. So now on the top level of some of the staircases, you'll just find new divisions. In vanilla Fallout 4, they make it to Phase 3, but it just kind of assumes the Institute continued building and expanding. And a lot of these new areas added in are cool for a couple of reasons. Some of them are definitely references to other pieces of media, some of them being pretty on the nose, other ones a bit more subtle. Some of the new areas actually have terminal and lore entries for other very popular Institute mods, almost canonizing them in the game. And if you're overhauling the Institute, kind of essential downloads that you'll want to have. And it's in some dormitories for the members of the Institute overall, your own actual director's headquarters, this being a fully functional workshop now that was added with one of the updates, but definitely makes you feel pretty special as the head of the Institute once you get that. And one of the big pushes with a recent update to this mod is to actually expand some of the areas. So the FEV rooms actually got a bit of an overhaul, adding inhabitants there as well as several guards. So that whole subsection gets a lot more interesting, and this was applied to several sections. So holistically, this mod is adding an additional layer onto the Institute, typically with an extra door here or there, but all of this feeling very lore friendly, like things Bethesda could have added in themselves, and it actually has some tangible benefits, as it also adds in several cybernetic implants you can craft for yourself, similar to what Kellogg was described as using. One of the new ones added actually gives you a brief point of invisibility, so you kind of freeze time, get a stealth field, can move around, and return in, which is a really nice feature in the game. But you of course have to craft these, so it does have a cost associated with it. Either way, another nice one that I feel like gets overshadowed as far as Institute expansions goes, as well as it has been getting constant updates. But with all that said, it's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, I hope you guys found this one informative. Hopefully this can serve to make your Fallout 4 and your Institute specifically a bit more interesting or better. But with that said, I thank you all again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.